Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Hey everybody, it's another Monday morning, and right about now, Boston Joe has backed his Toyota Tacoma out of the driveway, and he's heading to work, listening to our podcast, hoping that he's on it, which he is, by the way, on this particular edition of A Modeler's Life. Modelers have lives, and they're interesting. That's what this podcast is about. It's about model railroading and all the people that we enjoy being in the hobby with. Okay, so what we're doing today is we got two really cool segments. First off, we're going to talk to our buddy Shane, the Young Gun Mason, who is now an associate or an assistant editor with Model Railroad News, and he was building a module for the cover photo, I believe, of the June issue, which, by the way, the June issue has an excellent guest editorial by somebody that you may recognize. Not wanting to drop any names, but he's pretty close to me. I really liked it. I thought the editorial turned out good. I like what I wrote. There you go. This episode of Modeler's Life is quite entertaining, and I liked it a lot. And I was watching Samuel L. Jackson being interviewed on 60 Minutes, and the guy who was interviewing him said, "You watch a lot of your movies. A lot of actors don't watch their movies, and Samuel L. Jackson goes, yeah, I watch them all the time. If I'm flicking through the channel and there's one on, he says, I'll stop and watch it." And then he said, the interviewer says, well, why is it that you enjoy watching your own movies, but a lot of actors don't? And Samuel L. Jackson said it perfectly. Well, if you can't entertain yourself, who else are you going to entertain? And that's what I think this podcast has become, and I think it entertains me more than it entertains anybody else. I enjoy listening to it. I enjoy doing it. It's just a plus. It's a bonus in my life from every aspect, except, of course, now I'm close personal friends with Spoon, but that's okay. I love Spoon. I love the Spoon Man. I love the Spoonster. The Spoonster on it, working down there in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, tooling around in a locomotive on 7 miles of track. Anyways, that's it. Let's get right to it. So what we have, I better tell you what the show is. So first it's Shane Mason, Shane the Young Gun Mason, and he was working on a module for the cover photo of the June issue of Model Railroad News. And so we talked to him for about 20 minutes about working on that module. I got to talk to him more often. Got to talk to everybody more often. And that was really fun. And then we talked to Aaron Maue, who is a regular poster or guy that likes to post on the page, and I thought I want to start talking to some of these people that we don't get a chance to interview so we can all kind of identify with them. So that was a lot of fun too. We did that, and that was also a lot of fun. And those are the two segments on this particular show. It doesn't have a name, this show. It's just a show. Maybe it's the AML All-Star Variety Hour number 4. Maybe we should call it that. All right, enough talking, enough carrying on. Subway chime, go! Woodland Scenics Field Systems thing got going. Go ahead, caller.
Caller? Am I on?
You're on, caller. Go ahead. Where are you calling from?
The closet?
Poughkeepsie, New York. Go ahead, Poughkeepsie. Go ahead, Utica.
Utica. You know, we used to, when I was in marching band, we had a high school. I think they're out towards Joplin. And that was the name of the high school, was Utica. They had a hell of a marching program. Wow.
Okay. And then what was their mascot?
I'm not real sure. None of us ever Googled it because they always beat us in competition, so we really didn't care. We just wanted to leave.
Big news at the old AML headquarters. Where do you see Little Willie? The Argyle sock. It's almost done. It is going to sweep the nation.
Oh boy. Is that the new mascot?
The new mascot, it's an Argyle sock because of course it comes from Argyle, Texas, home of the Fighting Sox, and it's called Little Willie.
Little Willie, the Argyle sock.
Yeah.
I hope that's next year's decal.
Yeah, that would be cool. So, okay, we got like 15 minutes here. This is Shane, the young gun mason, who is now an assistant editor with Model Railroad News. And we happened to bump into each other in the hallway. And I said, "What are you working on?" And he said he's working on this module for the cover of Model Railroad News.
Yeah, the fun things Tony talks me into.
So you're building a whole module just to take a cover shot?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm doing like what Kenny does, just smaller.
You're doing what the dude does, only smaller. Is this N
Yep.
scale?
This is in scale, yes.
Are you going to shoot it outside?
Well, in a perfect world, yes. I'd like to, as long as it's not raining. If it's raining,
Yeah.
I'll have to shoot off the back deck with lighting. But
Yeah. Do you have a deck in your apartment?
yeah,
Oh,
little porch area.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, what is this for?
So it'll be for the July cover of MRN.
Okay. And
No, I'm sorry, it'll be June.
yeah,
I lied.
June is the month that I'm doing my guest editorial.
Yeah, because Tony's putting it together right now. So I've got this, these Kato SD70 AHs, and Broadway Limited ST40s. That'll all be in that issue.
Really?
Mhm.
So run that past us again. You got the Kato SD7.
SD70 AH.
All right. When were they built? When were they manufactured?
It's kind of so the SD70 AH really isn't extremely different from the SD70 ACE. The biggest difference being the cab is isolated. It's got a set of springs underneath that cab that tries to reduce the motion of the whole locomotive so the cab doesn't sway as much. Another key feature is a lower light. They're fairly recent. The ones that we're reviewing are what they call the Tier 4 credit units, which doesn't really make them special. It's just kind of something everybody referred to them as. The government allowed the railroads to buy Tier 3 locomotives after the cutoff, which was, I believe, 2016, 2017, something like that.
All right.
And they said for every Tier 3 unit you buy after the cutoff line, you have to buy one of the Tier 4. So they were allowed to buy Tier 3 for, I think, 6 or 8 months after the cutoff or something to that effect.
Really?
Yep.
And so these are by Kato, and you're doing the review.
Yep.
And what else are your? And so what do you think of them so far?
Well, we didn't get the 1943, which is UP's Spirit of the Union Pacific special paint,
Right.
kind of their nod to the veterans. So I had to end up picking up one of those at the show, but we got the other 3 road names that they made, which was 9041, 9088, and 9066. And overall, I'm really happy with them. I mean, it's hard to beat a Kato in terms of how they run. They're just bulletproof locomotives. The detail, I'm glad they went through and re-detailed them, because to do the AH versus the ACE, like I said, there's a lot of exterior differences along the cab. The PTC arrays are all new on the top of the cab, so instead of just taking the ACE shell and slapping new paint on it, they actually went through and retooled the whole shell, which was nice to see that they took the time to go through and do that, because it does make a difference, especially when you look at that low headlight and all the other little pieces.
Right. So they've gone to a lot of work then to make this a good model then.
Yes. Yep, that's what they said took them the longest to come to market with it, because originally Fox Valley was going to be the first to market with the in-scale version of the 1943. And, well, that was, I think they had samples at the in-scale convention, which was about a month before the China factory closing.
Right.
Back last year, so... yeah, Kato ended up being the first ones to bring it out, and they said that's what took them so long behind Fox Valley was they decided to go through and completely retool a new shell for that upper to match the actual AH, where Fox Valley already had that tooling done.
Do we know if did Fox Valley survive that whole China thing?
Yeah, they're actually they put out a new an email the other day. They're rerunning they're starting to make wheel sets again. They're making some box cars, and they have a big thing for, I think, the transfer caboose from Bulford Shop.
Oh yeah.
Or Blueford Shop, sorry.
And they're strictly N scale, right?
Yes, I believe so.
That whole China thing seemed like a whole lot of carrying on about nothing. I mean, there was so much hand wringing, and now all these manufacturers have all found somebody else to do their work.
Yeah, well, I think it was I don't think it was necessarily the factory closing itself. It was the vast number of manufacturers that were affected.
Yeah.
I think
And,
is what it came out to. And I apologize, I'm wrong. Fox Valley does HO and in scale
okay. Well, look at
because
you.
they did the GP60s in
All right.
both scales.
Okay. Now you said you went out and bought which one did you buy? 1943.
Yeah, I had to go out and get the 1943. Kato sent us the other three in the standard paint UP
Yeah.
Lightning scheme.
So how does that work now? Do you get reimbursed for that? Will you be reimbursed by the head office of White River Productions?
Um, I don't know how that works. Whether because I know Tony has told me before that if I wanted to get something and then review it, that could be done. I don't know how that works reimbursement wise. Either way, I was going to end up buying it, and I told Tony it doesn't matter to me whether we got it to review and ended up with it that way, or if I went out and bought it, which ended up being the case. I was going to have it regardless, so it really doesn't bother me.
Okay.
Um, having the other three kind of makes up for not having that one.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
will Kato expect these back, or you get to hang on to them for a while?
So the way the reviews work is I'm not technically paid for my reviews,
Okay.
though I do get some from White River for like photos and whatnot that I
Yep.
contribute to the magazine. Um, like I had one run in Passenger Train Journal last month of the 4141 coming back north when it was displayed. But beyond that, I don't get paid for any of these reviews. The models are technically
Your payment.
payment.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool though. That's a fair deal because now you're
It's nice because it allows you to, if it's something you want, you can keep it. If not, you can get rid of it or trade one of your buddies, and it's a nice compensation for the time.
yeah, absolutely. It's an excellent compensation because locomotives aren't inexpensive nowadays. So it's a very fair compensation, I would say.
For sure, and that's not quite the case all the times. There are occasions, especially when you start getting to the higher end stuff, that we will send back. I know Tony has said there's some of that brass stuff that we get that comes in for the review. We shoot photos, the reviewer gets it, and as soon as the review runs, we have to send it back. But that's just because of how expensive that stuff does get.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But so it's just kind of a case by case thing. It's something that either the manufacturers and Tony sit down and do. That's something that's above my pay grade.
How long have you actually been an assistant editor now? This is right now when we're talking. This is almost April 1st.
So I would have been in since that came through December. So it'd have been, I guess November is when I would have been brought on.
Okay, all right,
Because when they pay you, whether it's photos or a review or an article, you're always paid the month after an issue runs.
all right.
So
Okay.
my first payment was December, so I was brought on in November of last year.
So how big is this module you're building?
It's about 14 inches wide by about 4 foot long, and I'm currently just kind of working one side of it. Tony wanted something that kind of looked like Williams Loop up on the Feather River route.
Okay,
So I'm doing one side to look like Williams Loop, some loosely based. I'm not going rock for rock exact, but
right.
I'm doing Williams Loop on one side, and then the other side I'm not sure. I may end up finishing it just doing a full Williams Loop thing, or I know I try to base them roughly off what we're doing. So I know Kato is going to be running the Santa Fe Super Chiefs here pretty quick. So I thought a New Mexico bare rock scene on this backside would be kind of cool because then it gives you two options for shooting.
Right, yeah.
And then when I plan to design these, like I don't know if you can quite see all the little pins and everything all over them right now. Each pin's numbered, and I have trees up on a piece of foam on top of the workbench. Each tree has a place because I try to make it to where we can shoot different spots on this module, not just one spot. That way, I'm not just building this for one shot and then it sits in a closet until we do the same shot later. We can shoot, from the end of this module looking towards the tunnel, or from the hill looking out of the tunnel, or from the other side looking down through the trees. That way, we can use it in future issues, or even if we just did it for, one shot in part of a review just for the sake of having.
Okay, so I do see the pin. So you've got a pin with a number on it, which is designated for a corresponding tree.
Yeah, here I know the viewers can't see it, but
But wow,
this is
there's all your tree.
I got a piece of foam with a bunch of trees, and each one's got a number by the base of it. And each pin, whether it's blue or red, it's marked on there. But I have like blue 1 through 10, and then red 1 through 14.
And why are you doing that? Because you wanted a certain tree in a certain spot?
Yeah. So before I did any of the ground cover, I put all my trees in, and I go tree by tree and I look at all my different shots I'm going to do. And, I'll put one tree down and then I'll check all 3 or 4 of my shots. And if it doesn't look good in all 3 shots, I won't put it there. I'll move it.
Wow.
Just because I don't want to have to try and move trees or fill holes later. I want all my shots to be clean, regardless of where I put that tree.
I've been talking to you for like 12 minutes and I'm worn out already. I got to tell you, I never had pins in my layout for each particular tree. I just went, oh, that one looks nice there. I think I'll stick it there.
It's definitely different when you build a layout versus building a layout for photography.
Well, for sure.
It makes a world of difference. And there's a gentleman who has I think he's passed away now. I don't recall his name, but I know he did a lot of CSX articles for MR.
Oh, yeah.
He was doing a CSX switching urban industrial type layout. And it was really cool because he did a lot of those little detail, pieces of paper and boards and whatnot between the tracks. But his entire layout was built for photography. And he talks about how different it is building a layout for, shot for shot versus just, whatever looks good from waist or chest high.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And now, so how long have you been working on it?
Oh, let's see, on and off for about 2 weeks now. But now that we're getting down to crunch time, I've been cranking out on it. I think I was up till 1 last night working on it. Came home from work and started working and was up till about 1 in the morning. Same thing with the night before. I was up till 3 in the morning on Saturday, just doing bits and pieces of it.
It's a lot of pressure, isn't it, when you know it's going to be on the cover of a major magazine?
Yeah, and that's my thing is, especially with having done trim work and whatnot, I am very about the details. That's why I said I check every shot, because I'm looking for like individual rocks to be out of place, spots that need more ballast, more glue, holes, and it's not just kind of shoot it and go with it for me. It's got to be absolutely perfect. I hand painted all the track for the weathering and everything, and I still haven't even done the chalk down the middle of the track for the oil and whatnot. And
so when do you have to have the shot done by?
the end of this week, so I've got 4 more days.
4 more days. Are you going to make it?
Yeah, I think I've got tonight. It'll probably be another long night tonight, and that should be it, really. All I have now is just static grass, and then a little bit of track weathering and maybe some little details. But I think I can do it here tonight. Maybe finish up a little bit tomorrow and get it outside and shoot it and call it good.
Holy mackerel. What a guy. What camera do you use to shoot it with?
Well, I burnt out I had a D3200 Nikon, and I fried the board on that the other day trying to plug it into the computer.
How'd you manage that?
So there's 2 cords that plug into the same jack on that computer that are not the same cord, and one will hook it to the computer, one will fry the motherboard. I just happen to pull the one that fries the motherboard.
Oh, man.
So, but I think that camera was getting to be 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
So I just decided it was best to just get a new camera. So I got a Nikon D7500 was kind of my gift to myself. I saved up my MRN money for the first 3 months or so, or 4 months or so, and it helps take a little bit of that dent off the wallet. But
what is it? A D7500?
Yeah.
How much is that puppy? Let me see. I'm gonna see how much this puppy runs. Wow, $1,700. No.
Well, mine was less. I got just the body. That's the one that comes with the body and the lens.
Okay.
Because my theory was I already had the 18 to 55 and a 55 to 200 millimeter, so I really didn't need lenses. I just needed the camera.
Do you use a macro lens?
Yes, that was the other thing I bought with last month's MRN money.
That was one of the first things I bought when I started shooting pictures for MR Steady. Was you're so lucky. When I started writing Steady for MR, I had to do it on film, and then I'd take the film and I'd run it over to the store. The only thing that saved my bacon was about 5 miles from my house. There was a guy that actually could do slides in about an hour. So I could get my stuff. I could shoot a roll of slides, take it in the next morning, get it by noontime. So that really sped up the whole process. Well, that's
we were talking about that the other day. Well, we were talking about that with shooting stuff nowadays, because there's a lot of people that go out and rail fan and they don't shoot as much, and especially with pixels are so cheap now.
Yes, pixels have come way down in price.
Oh, I tell you what, it's unbelievable how cheap pixels are now. No, but we were talking about that. We said, with how easy it is to click one button on your camera and preview the photo on your camera, or if you don't like it, delete it, and then you've opened up that space again. It's not like a roll of film where you have X number of shots
I know.
and then you have to put a new roll in, So it's I waste a lot of pixels when we go out in Railfan because I'll shoot pictures of
sure.
anything. Just because you don't know what's going to be around much longer, rare consists that you think is something you'd see every day on a local job. And then come 3 or 4 years from now, you sit down and you say, man, I wish I would have shot those. Because that's the way I've gotten about the MP15s. UP used to have a bunch of them here in town. And I always thought, oh, man, they'll be around forever. And that next year I said that, they are gone.
Yeah, exactly. You can't shoot too many photos, and you got to learn to sift through them really quick. And if you do those two things, you can get tons and tons of good photos. All right, that's it. I got to go because now I'm going to go interview Walker Embry.
Oh, good guy. He never met him, but I'm friends with him on Facebook. He was one of the guys from St. Louis or over that way.
How'd you get to be friends with him on Facebook?
Well, he knows Joshua and all those guys.
Yeah.
He knows all the guys who hang out in St. Louis, and I'm friends with a good number of them over there. So
yeah, Joshua's a good guy. All right, say goodbye. Say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye to everybody.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Did you get in? Did you manage to my directions to the studio? Did you manage to figure them out?
Yeah, I think I got lost a little bit there, but the Stuart L. Sterling building is pretty tall. It stands out a little bit.
It stands out in downtown Busted Knuckle, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Have you been to any of the 7 locations of Because I Love Sushi?
No, I'm just not much of a sushi fan.
Neither am I, for some reason or other. I can't get excited about sushi. So, Aaron, here's the deal. Here's the dealio. There's more and more people on the podcast that I have yet to interview, and we don't get them on the air or nothing yet. And there's like guys like you and Jeff Brigham from Michigan who's always writing in. And I thought, at the very least, I want to start talking to these guys at least for like a half an hour to get some sort of give people a chance to hear who they are. So,
yeah.
So I'm using you as a guinea pig.
Oh boy.
But the problem is what the problem we have tonight is I didn't realize that the guys had their euchre night tonight. In the studio. So also
is that what I heard on the way in?
No, you can't. You see them also in the studio here with us is Secret Agent 0013 Tom Jacobs, all the way from Robesonia, Pennsylvania.
Hi there.
The mildly agitated mail boy.
That's me.
Can you say it with a little more conviction?
That's me.
And then we have Spoon, Mike the Spoon Ostertag, who just stirs things up.
And somebody took like half my stack of chips.
And then finally we have Boston Joe Cummings, all the way from Hanover, Massachusetts, who's also the spokesman for the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Lodge.
Howdy. And we should point out that Boston Joe has special guest Ted the Wonder Dog in the studio with
Yes, and special guest Ted the Wonder Dog in the studio. So everybody turn their... Actually, you know what? This is such an unusual night. Let's just leave the cameras on.
All right.
Looks like Ted is keeping everyone honest from cheating.
Yeah. So we got 6 of us here in the studio. So, Aaron, when did you first stumble onto the podcast?
That's probably been about 2 years now, actually.
And do you know how you found it?
Honestly, let's see. I was actually looking for photography podcasts, and I got tired of listening to them. So the way I stumbled into learning more about getting back into the knowledge of photography, I thought I'd apply that back to model railroading because I didn't know where to turn to. Like you guys said, it was kind of like being a part of a secret or being a secret agent. Everyone's there, but you don't know who they are until you start to talk to them.
Right.
And I stumbled across a couple other podcasts, but none of them held my attention. And then I found you.
And we don't help. And do we hold your attention?
Oh yeah. Actually, don't spoil the last podcast you released because I got to listen to it tomorrow on the way to Nebraska.
We don't remember what it is. So.
Yeah, exactly. What was the last one that I released? Viewer post number 30?
I think it was a viewer post.
Yeah, viewer post number 30. That's got a good ending on it. That's got a really good ending. At the time,
I think I got to do the Vacation Cruise number 30, and I also got to do your All-Star Variety Hour.
okay, yeah. Well, Vacation Cruise number 30 has a great ending. At the time it was being recorded, I was getting more and more annoyed at Bruce Kelly and Tom Jacobs and Bruce the moderately agitated mailboy because they were.
Uh-oh. Did that come from the green room?
No,
Oh, that somebody let the back door open and the raccoon got back in.
Yeah.
You got into the shrimp.
Yeah, they got into the,
So it did come from the green room.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, so we held your interest, and because you were mostly searching out photography and things like that.
Yeah. So I just took what I was using to research other things, and I applied it into model railroading, and that's whenever the whole hobby just exploded for me. I started finding other people. I wound up finding the club that I'm part of now, and I've been listening to you guys ever since. I tried going back and listening, but the way iTunes works, it just became a little hard to follow with some of the inside jokes you get from episode to episode.
Yeah, so you need to start from the beginning and go to the start, but yeah. So now you're back into model railroading.
I am.
Let's turn our cameras off. I'm going to turn the cameras. There we go. That's much better. I like it a lot better when I can't see any of you guys. So okay. So now, were you introduced to model railroading as a kid, like everybody else?
Yeah, basically. I guess you could say that my first real model train set was actually the wooden ones. And my dad had a train set on a 4x8 table that I can barely remember it being up. And then as we got older, moved a couple times, he had, from what I remember, it looked like it was going to be a shelf layout. And that never made it up, but I always ended up playing with him. And then eventually I took over all of his Atlas. This was before all the Snaptrack came around, so it was all of the Atlas pre-shaped pieces.
Right.
And I would play with them on the floor. I actually still have my Atlas layout book, and I would put a lot of those together, depending on how many turnouts I had, and just play with it on the floor. This was all back probably till about 10 or 11 years old, and then I wound up building my first 4x8 table. Got tired of watching it go around in circles, moved to N-scale so that I could run longer trains, and then wound up moving out of my parents' house and kind of had to put everything on the side from there because I just never had the space or the money.
Moved out of your parents' house when you were 11 or 12?
No, that was when I was 18.
Oh, okay, all right. And so did you go to... So do you mind if I ask you how old of a gentleman you are?
28. I'll be 29 in June.
Too bad.
Yeah, getting closer.
You'll have to leave and come back in about 40 years.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to have to cut this interview off.
Yeah,
That's right.
Tom
I
Jacobs,
don't meet the NMRA standards, do I?
Yeah, Tom Jacobs on the way out. He's got some parting gifts for you.
Well, if it's the shrimp, I can give him to the raccoon.
No, we've got some Z-brick and some turtle wax for you.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so again, this is an interesting question because we were talking to Walker Embry, and he's also 28 or 29. So everybody, like in the early 90s, remember, Bruce, you remember this.
The early 90s. That's when I first met you.
Well, yeah, but remember back then when personal computers were becoming more and more common in every household. Back then,
exactly.
the hand-wringing was that personal computers was going to wipe model railroading off the face of the planet.
Right. It was taking the place of slot cars, which wiped it off the face of the planet.
Yeah, it was going to annihilate. It was going to annihilate. What's the word? Not annihilate. Annihilate.
get rid of.
Boy, this is 30. This is 30 quality. This is 30 quality minutes of podcasting. Let me tell you.
Tonight's podcast is brought to you by the words "annihilate" and "holy cow."
And the number 28.
Yes.
We're not submitting this one for AP judging, are we?
Yeah, no. Yeah.
No.
Okay, so my question to you is, did computers, you seem to be an avid model railroader now, how come computers didn't infect your brain and push you away from the hobby?
Well, I still remember as a little kid, my dad was in IT. So, I was born in 1990. They were starting to become more common in households, but I still remember that it was kind of unique that I had a computer in the household, and we had the original floppy disk, the 5-inch ones,
Oh, yes.
instead of the hard disk that took the name of floppy disk. I never understood why they were backwards. But, there just wasn't much that you could do on a personal computer back then. I mean, you had games like Snake and Dig Dug and things like that, but it just never really took over. I remember getting my first gaming console, which was the PlayStation, and that was cool, but it wasn't real. So I always wanted to have my hands on something. I was still a very outdoor kid.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So all right. So now here we are, and you're 28 years old. So you once you moved out of the house at 18, the model railroading kind of took a back seat, and you got back into it a couple of years ago when you were 25, 26 years old.
Yeah, you could say that. Actually, that was about 2 years ago or so. Whenever my son was born, and I saw his spark of interest in trains, it really brought it back to me.
How old's your son?
He's 2 now. Well, 2.5.
And he's already got an interest in trains?
Oh my goodness, yes. He comes by it honestly too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so, can you give us an example of what it is? Like he just likes Thomas the Train or something, or what?
Well, I tried to get him onto Thomas the Train, and then I realized that after Thomas the Train wore off for me, the series really kind of got ridiculous with its childness. But I tried to get him onto that, and then I got him a little toy steam train, a pullback steam train from the Museum of Transportation when I took him up there for the first time. And he just kind of fell in love, I guess, seeing these gigantic pieces of machinery. And then he had one that he could take home and play with it. And now he's got more wooden trains than I did when I was his age. He's got 2 pullback steam trains. He's got another train that he's got to earn whenever he goes to the bathroom. And we went to a swap meet, and he went with me. And because he behaved, he got another toy train. So he's always around him. He loves them. He keeps telling me when he's got to get bigger so that he can have my trains.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Guys, help me out here. Joe, maybe you can help me out here. I'm thinking maybe we need a train that Spoon can earn whenever he goes to the washroom.
I'll get back to you on that.
You said only if I didn't leave my mark, I would earn something.
Yeah, you
What are you, Zorro?
Zorro, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So are you building the layout now, Aaron?
Well, I'm kind of limited by space. I'm in a split level home, so half my basement is my garage. And I'm too late for this year's playoff season in hockey, but next year I'm hoping to have my basement finished as additional entertainment so that I can have the projector on the wall and people over for playoffs.
Okay. But are you building the layout in the basement?
No, I don't have enough space. So what I am doing instead is I'm working on 2 4-foot modules for my club, and part of that is a 3 industry. It was going to be a 4 industry switching layout, but now it's a 3 industry switching layout, and I'll probably spend about 20 minutes at a time just switching cars back and forth between the industries and the branch line spur.
Yeah, and you said there earlier that because of the social media and that, you found a whole bunch of guys and a club and all that to belong to.
Yeah. Well, I wound up just looking for clubs in the area, and I found a couple, but they were a little far away from my house, and luckily, because I live about an hour south of St. Louis, I wound up finding a club that wasn't that far from me, and I get along with them great.
And what's the name of the club?
Jefferson County and Southern Model Railroad Club.
So is it near Jefferson City?
No, that's in the center of the state.
Oh, okay.
No, Jefferson County, we're the county. So you got St. Louis County, and then South County, and then Jefferson County just below that.
All right. And so are you born and raised in the St. Louis area?
In a roundabout way. I was born over in Illinois. Well, no, I was born in St. Louis, but my whole family is from Illinois. and we wound up going to Michigan, I believe, for the first 3 years of my life that I can't remember.
Right.
And then my dad, who's in IT, wound up working for Caterpillar or I should say contracted for Caterpillar out in Peoria. Go Rivermen, even though they're not our farm team. And I still got a puck from theirs. They'll always do something special to me.
Slow down here. Have you ever listened to this podcast?
Yeah, I know. I'm probably getting ahead of you, aren't I?
Yeah, you can't say "Go Rivermen" and then just say, because there's people that are listening to us that don't even know what hockey is. Never mind.
Yeah.
So so you went and moved to Peoria. So now I'm guessing in Peoria there was some sort of minor league team called the Rivermen.
Yep, the Peoria Rivermen. They were the St. Louis Blues farm team. I forgot how long ago, but they stopped, and now they're using a team down in Texas.
Okay. And so, all right. So then from Peoria, you ended up back towards St. Louis.
Yep. We ended up back towards St. Louis, and then I wound up meeting my wife and moving down south.
By down south, you mean the other side of St. Louis?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm still quote unquote a part of St. Louis, but I'm way on the outskirts.
Right. Like how far? How many miles is it to the, what do they call the big arch that goes across the river there?
It's just the St. Louis Arch. I'm probably about 40 miles or so.
Okay, so you're like 40 miles from downtown St. Louis to the south.
Yeah.
All right. Right on the Mississippi River. We're in a big sweeping mansion with overlooks the Mississippi River.
Oh, I'm on a riverboat.
Yeah.
Do you have a top hat?
No.
Okay,
play cards?
Yeah. What was that?
Do you play cards?
Not as much anymore.
Okay. So what do you do for a living?
I actually work for the Missouri Army National Guard.
Okay, what do you do for those guys?
I service and maintain all the rolling stock in the St. Louis area.
Wow. So, like, are you like a heavy mechanic? Is that what you are, or what?
Yeah, I guess you could call it heavy. My job in the National Guard is actually construction equipment mechanic, but I basically maintain all of our normal equipment, and I guess you could call it heavy. Everything is heavy in the Army for some reason.
So how did you end up with that job? Like, that sounds like a pretty interesting job. How did you end up in the National Guard as the equipment maintaining guy in the St. Louis area?
Well, it was more just I got lucky with the opportunities that came my way. I joined the National Guard when I was 20 and wound up going to school as an automotive technician, and eventually a position opened up in the shop I'm in, and I applied and I wound up getting it.
Perfect. And now you said tomorrow you're headed to Nebraska?
Yeah, I got to go through school. I've been promoted into a slot, but now I have to go to school so that I can get officially promoted into the slot.
What's the slot you got promoted into?
Sergeant.
Okay. So now you're going to be a sergeant in the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And so explain to us, like, are a lot of people permanent National Guard people? I thought it was more of a weekend thing.
It is more of a weekend thing. There are a handful of, we call them active guard reserves, and they basically maintain the units. Technically, I'm a federal civilian employee, and then I still have my guard on the side, but in order to hold my job, I have to be in the National Guard. It's complicated. That's about the best way that I can explain it.
Yeah, it is complicated, and I'm confused, and that's good. So tell us about that. So tell us what you like to model.
Right now, I have taken a pretty good interest in Missouri Pacific. I feel kind of embarrassed that I never really knew that this was the railroad of my era until the 70s, whenever Union Pacific officially took over. I guess it'd really be the early 80s.
Right. Are we talking? We're talking Mopac, right?
Yeah, Mopac.
Yeah.
And the more I started digging into it to kind of learn the history of the area I'm in, because I'm actually in DeSoto, Missouri, which is Mopac's one of Mopac's yards. And I believe it's the largest car repair facility this side of the Mississippi. I may be wrong on that by current standards, but it used to be.
Really? Oh, okay. So I know it's still, but it's operated now by the Union Pacific.
Yes, and it's still fully functional.
Wow. And okay, so your modules. So the modules you're building, and they're going to be Mopac.
They're going to be Missouri Pacific based. So the club that I'm in, where they have fairly loose guidelines. The one thing that you can't really stray from is the fact that it has to be Jefferson County like scenery, meaning the rolling hills and the cutoff cliffs and all that stuff, small towns along the way. The oddity is that we're running a double main line, but that's for the shows. Pretty much everything through here is single main line. And the other thing is that our time period is the 40s and 50s, which
really?
I'm going on the later end of that so that I can start getting into the variety of the first gen diesels and kind of get away from the F units that everybody has.
Yeah, and is it HO scale, this club?
Yes.
All right, but if you were modeling on your own in your own home, would it be HO or N scale?
I thought about getting back into N scale. Whenever I got into it the first time, Atlas had decided to really stick to the NMRA standards for their Code 55 track, and I guess nobody else really stuck that close to the standards. So the track that I had laid, every car that I had, you would hear it hitting the ties as it would go over.
Okay.
And apparently that had been fixed, and I was planning on doing a big layout in the basement, and decided that if I'm going to go ahead and get into this club, I might as well just stick with the same scale. So my next house should have a full layout in it.
Okay. All right. And Spoon, what do you know about the Mopac? He's got his microphone turned off. See if he turns it on. See if he's left the room.
I haven't left the room. I'm right here.
All right.
Yeah, I know quite a bit about the Mopac. At one point when I was still in HO, I had considered doing their very far northeastern portion, the old Chicago and Eastern Illinois portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I always thought that was kind of neat. But my problem is I wanted to do the Cole SD40-2s because I liked it. I like the lighting packages on those, and those didn't really come over that way. So
Yeah.
I was always, man, what do I do? Well, one might just come to Chicago.
Well, and
So-
you never know, because Mopac that was their main industry. I mean, that's what they had started with, was coal.
Yeah, and they had one of the largest fleets of GP15-1s, other than Conrail. I think they both had 100 of them, and that's just a cool little 4-axle unit. It's just kind of a little 4-axle tunnel motor. I mean, who'd have thunk? But yeah, the Mopac's cool railroad. I like it a lot.
Well, GP50.
So Aaron,
I approve.
Okay.
What?
Go ahead, Tom.
you said the entire club standard is that 1940s and 50s era.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that really, if you think about it, that really kind of presents a good challenge. Because it's I would think that stuff might not be as readily available as grabbing a second gen diesel off the shelf or something. So I mean, I'm sure that's takes some skill and planning to pull off.
It does, and it takes quite a bit of research. I have decided to kind of gray area or muddy the rules a little bit with some of the stuff that I've been getting. For example, I have 3, I think they're 70-ton Pullman covered hoppers. And those, of course, weren't around back in the 50s.
Right.
But, I got them anyway. I also have the Lionel Polar Express that they just released in HO, mainly because I wanted to see all the different options that it can do. So that, of course, doesn't fit anybody's, realistic standards. But I got that more for the winter shows for the kids. And so far, everybody in the club seems kind of excited about that. But the only thing that I have really found that's readily available is all of the passenger cars, because the way or the route of the Eagles, they're all over the place.
And so how far where did the Mopac run from and to?
Well, let's see. It really all depends on what time period you're talking about. I don't know the whole history of the Mopac, but I can say that it pretty much ran all the way from Chicago down to about central Texas. And they tried to go east a little bit, and they tried to go west a little bit. They ran out to Kansas City, and they were trying to go east, but I think they had whatever agreement they had with the railroads over there kind of fell apart. Mopac had a lot of agreements that fell apart.
So when was their heyday? Like the 40s and 50s, or?
Yeah, just about. Their passenger service started going down. I think their last train or the last Texas Eagle that ran was about 72. I only remember this because of an article. I think it ran with only 3 cars on it.
Spoon, wasn't the Mopac kind of a romantic railroad?
Yes. I was looking. I was like making sure I wasn't on mute. I'm like, boy, I'm being awful quiet.
I know that's bothered me a lot. Like it's like this is very unusual for you to let other people talk.
Well, I'm working on my listening skills.
Well, don't. This is audio. This is audio.
Yeah, the Mopac, the Eagle series of passenger trains was really iconic, and absolutely gorgeous. That gray and blue color was just fantastic. There wasn't it was one of the big. It would rival like the city of New Orleans on the Illinois Central and the Milwaukee Road Hiawatha's and the Chicago Northwestern 400s. It was very an iconic Midwestern passenger train, but they were, and it was innovative too, because they had used some pretty odd E units for a very long time, if memory serves me correctly.
They did.
Yeah. Like I want to say they had like E5s, if that sounds right. They had some really weird. I'd have to get my book out and take a look at
Yeah. It's been a while since I looked at those.
Yeah, I haven't. It's been like a long time, but they had some really, really weird E units that they would use from time to time. And then all of a sudden, just like everybody else, they had the E8s and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, cool railroad. Very, very romantic.
Yeah,
Very
they
romantic.
pretty much use the E units for their passenger service and the F units for their freight services.
Yeah.
Did they
And
have
then,
a
of
train
course,
called the?
What was that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did they have
Oh,
a
no.
train called the? Did they have a train?
What's that?
Did they have a train called the Penn Texas that was in conjunction with the Pennsy?
They ran a leg of that. Yes, it's funny you mention that because back in last year in Christmas, I was trying to link the Pentex to the song. Wow, I'm spacing out. I think I got it here in my notes actually. But yes, the Pentex ran through the Pensy system. I believe it used a part of the Burlington system. It ran through the Texas Eagle actually. So it would come in. I think it came into St. Louis where it would transfer to the Texas Eagle, and then it would run all the way down to Texas.
Okay, because the Pensy layout that I operate on from time to time, Larry Reynolds, he runs the Penn Texas, and he's got a nice combination of Pensy passenger equipment with those those blue and silver, or blue and gray, whatever they are, the Mopac passenger equipment. It's pretty slick.
Yeah, Mopac just seems to be like it was a cool railroad.
It was. They made a lot of very questionable decisions. One of the things was that they could never truly commit after the 50s, whenever diesel started changing. They could never truly commit to a specific train. I think the next largest series they had was the SD40s, but before they wound up getting the SD40s, they bought. Let's see, this was in 58, and I had to look all this up because I was eyeballing a Alco RS11 that Atlas does, and they had 12 of those in 58. And then I guess they didn't like them because in the mid 60s, they converted them all over to GEs.
Really? And you said SD40s?
Yeah, they had a bunch of SD40-2s. You probably could recognize them from the 70s. They started getting painted in Union Pacific colors, but they still had Missouri Pacific written on the side.
All right. So when did the Union Pacific actually take over the Mopac?
Officially, it would have been I think it was... I want to say early 80s. I don't know what year.
All right.
But they were in the process from the 60s on.
The bummer part about the Mopac is, and that really bums me out, is that the Missouri Pacific put a big order in for SD50s, and that was, I want to say it was 1984, somewhere in that area, 1984, 85-ish, because all of them were delivered in UP paint with Missouri Pacific on the side. Not a one of them ever wore Mopac paint.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, because that would have been a cool unit to see in Mopac paint.
Well, I'm having a hard time finding an RS11 photo of it in Mopac paint. I keep finding after they were converted and they changed the paint to that all blue with the white stripes on the front.
Yeah.
And the model I have, I'm trying to figure out if it's actually accurate to paint. Obviously, Atlas wouldn't probably release something unless they had some kind of prototype photo for the scheme that they used, but I can't seem to find it anywhere.
Do you have Kevin Udaley's Mopac book?
I do not. I actually don't have hardly any literature right now.
Man, if there is one book that you have to get, it is Kevin Udaley's Mopac Power book. It is the what's what encyclopedia of pretty much every diesel locomotive the Mopac ever owned. It covers everything. It covers the gamut from, it even has as far down as serial numbers, frame numbers, all sorts of stuff to it. It's an absolutely amazing piece of literature, and for the life of me, I can't find mine.
I'm gonna have to look for it.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it here as soon as I can find it. I'm going on mute for a second. I'll be right back.
Why?
Because I want to go look for this book.
Yeah.
Why are you going on mute?
Because ever since he fixed the internet, you can hear his thoughts.
Yeah, I can't. My thoughts are not for public. Nobody wants
Neither
to
am I.
Well, before you go look for your book,
No.
before you go look for your
I'll
book.
be back in like 2 seconds.
All right, go ahead and look at your book.
December 20, 1982.
What happened in December 20?
December
That's
22nd.
when they officially got bought out.
UP purchased them and combined with Western Pacific and Union Pacific.
Okay, I thought it was 83, but that's why I wasn't sure.
December 22nd is close to 83.
Well, and
Yeah.
it says dates of operation was 1851 to 1997.
Yep, first railroad west of the Mississippi.
But they were purchased when by the Union Pacific in...
December 22nd, 1982.
So they continued to operate it as the Mopac for another 15 years.
It's part of UP.
As the railroad tends to do, they probably only painted equipment as it needed it.
Right, exactly. Okay. And it says...
I'm back.
Are you back?
Oh, real quick before I lose it, I figured out that song that I was trying to connect to the Penn, Texas, and it's Home for the Holidays. If you
Home?
listen to the lyrics, it kind of makes sense from the route and everything in the towns they stopped in.
And who sung that?
Ooh, you're asking another question. It's in my thing.
Yeah.
The Carpenters.
Bing Crosby.
Yep. Ben Crosby.
No, it was the
No.
Carpenters.
The
No, they
Carpenters.
they
Get
both
lost.
did a version. They both did a version.
The Carpenters. Give me a break.
Google it.
Oh, I'm sure they did, but that's like saying I don't know, that's like saying Justin Bieber did Baby It's Cold Outside.
Oh my God! The Carpenter's version is the one you hear all the time at Christmas on Sirius.
Well, that may be that. I don't doubt that for a second, but they're not the ones that did it. Bing Crosby was the originator of Home
Perry
for the-
Como.
Perry Como was the originator of
November 16th, 854.
Yeah, exactly.
The Carpenters did a version in 78. Olivia Newton-John did a version in 2000. And Robert Allen did a version in 1990.
And how was that Olivia Newton-John one received?
I have no idea.
And you can't make anything up.
Outstandingly well.
Okay, so it says in 1967 the railroad operated 9,041 miles of road and 13,318 miles of track. That makes no sense to me. Spoon, what does that mean?
Okay, say that again.
9,000 miles of road and 13,000 miles of track.
What that means
Yards.
is they had 9,000 miles of main line and 13,000 miles of overall linear trackage.
Okay.
So like that, like Tom said, like their yards, their little sidings, spurs, stuff like that. That all their all their
Yeah.
non-mainline trackage.
Yeah. They had 9,000 miles of track that went here, there, and everywhere. Some of it was branches and whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the main
Yeah.
thing they hauled was
What did
I
you
know
need
what
hauled?
they started with. It was coal.
everything.
They were pretty regional with, I think, their traffic, weren't they, Aaron? Because they, like in the Midwest, like the upper Midwest Illinois area, they had a lot of grain trains. Down out on the western end of the railroad, it was more coal trains.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, I want to say that they were pretty regional. You guys were talking a couple episodes ago that were aired from whenever we're recording this about like doing different consists and trains. And I believe that they had a lot of specific trains that only did their specific job. Like a lot of their coal trains would pretty much just run straight from the mines to the power plants.
Now, okay, so we're going to close up this. We're going to finish this up because I only wanted to do like 30 or 35 minutes. And so let's finish up with when we started. You were telling, before we came on the air, you were telling Spoon that you listened to the which side of the tracks do you model,
Yeah.
like more than once.
Yeah. Well, let's see. The first time, it wound up on my next to listen to again. And then the third time I went back and listened to it again because I was really hitting a hump with what I'm kind of wanting to go in the direction of picking out a layout. I want to do the Mopac, but I have a hard time trying to fit a huge region, especially like Jefferson County. A lot of what Missouri is, it's so spread out that it's hard to fit different towns and industries into a layout. And really, it was actually something you had said, Lionel, that caught my attention and made me kind of go, you know what, screw it. It's my layout. I can do what I want. And that is that it's really just a stage for the trains to be on. So as long as I can capture what I feel is the spirit of what I'm trying to do, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think the layout is just, everything else has to be exact, but the layout is compressed. We talked about that with Tom, too. He was part of that discussion.
Yep.
The layout is actually the compressed part and where you have the most latitude to do whatever you want, because people don't come in and go, well, that piece of grass wasn't there. It was over here. Whereas if you have a louver out of place on a locomotive, people go berserk.
Yeah. And then I observed in automotive, we call it the 20-20 rule, 20 miles an hour, 20 feet away. But I would probably still hold that to a lot of my collection, I would say.
All right.
Now I've got a lot of AccuRail, so it's not high end, but it's not low end either.
Okay, let's go back here now. You can't just glance over this stuff. Somebody somewhere in the world perked up when you said the 20-20 rule. So what are you talking about? The 20-20 rule?
20-20 rule. If it looks good at 20 feet away or 20 miles an hour.
Okay. So I guess my rule would be the 55 rule, wouldn't it? 50 miles an hour and 5 feet away.
Do you know what 55 is?
50 miles an hour and 5 feet away.
Are we talking about it in a school zone?
Yeah, no. You don't speed. Don't speed in a school zone. That's crazy. You got to respect my rule is go as fast as you want from town to town when you're out in the Midwest, but when you get to the towns, you got to respect the speed and don't be rude to the townspeople. And
yeah, you definitely don't want to do that.
Exactly. All right, Aaron. All right. So what's the name of the club you belong to?
Jefferson County and Southern Model Railroad Club.
And how well stocked is it with human beings? Is it fairly active? Is it fairly popular?
I wouldn't say that it's the largest club in the world. Right now, we don't have a building, and it seems like everyone's kind of okay with that. Some of us are probably wishing that we had a building. And right now, we're trying to figure out how to gain more membership, but it seems like we're getting a couple more people around my age, maybe a little bit younger, who are starting to inquire about us. I'm hoping that over the next couple of years, we can figure something out. We can get a building and start setting up our modules permanently, because maintenance right now is a big problem. Just trying to keep the track maintained for the shows and do layout updates as they're needed.
Yeah. So how many modules do you guys have? Like, how big is this layout?
It's pretty big. I can say I don't think I've seen it completely assembled yet, and I can get you specs for it right here.
So I'm telling you guys, this layout is going to explode because young people, guys Aaron's age, who I don't think would have had as much access to the hobby even 20 years ago, are much more engaged with the hobby.
Yeah, the layout size, the information that I had on that, it's already been erased from my phone. I hate how Apple does that.
What else has been erased from your phone?
Well, we don't want to talk about that. I thought this was a family show.
All right. Any questions? Anybody else got any more questions? We've now introduced Aaron Maue. Is it Maue? M-A-U-E?
Maui.
Maui. It is Maui. We were listening to something, and I think you told me that before. And Bruce Wilson says he thought it was Maui.
Yeah. It's a little different. The best I could tell is I believe I have German descendant, and whenever they came over here, it was Mauer, but they changed it to Maui, so they dropped the R off the end.
Okay. Do you live there?
No, I don't live there. I wish I did. They got good beer.
All right. What's your favorite thing about the podcast? Before we go, this will be your last question. What's your favorite thing about the podcast?
Ooh, this is gonna sound corny, but listening to you guys and feeling like I know y'all.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're right. That did sound corny. Jeez.
That's actually what everybody says. That's the best thing. Is Joe your favorite?
Is Joe my favorite?
Say no. If you know what's good for you, for the love of God, say no.
Either way, you'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah. So that's what most people say. That's what the show's about, is building a community and making it sound. And that's why I wanted to have you on, Aaron. Next guy I'm going to chase down, one of the guys I'm going to chase down is Jeff Brigham. And anybody else that wants to say their 2 cents worth, get in contact with me and we'll figure something out. And we'll have you on again anyways, Aaron, but I wanted to make sure I got you on for a few minutes.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to try and make it up to, it's still in Rochelle this year, isn't it?
It is in Rochelle this year. The the 2019 picnic is in Rochelle. And if you come up on the Thursday, we're going to have a days full of activities on Thursday in the Chicago area.
Yeah, is the caboose build-off in that?
The caboose build-off, the judging for the caboose build-off will be at the picnic.
Hey.
Regardless of what they have to bring what they have.
I'm expecting really high marks coming from another fellow person that enjoys the Missouri Pacific as much as I do. I'm not above guilting people into voting for me.
No, well, that's true. We saw that with what do they call it? Down and dirty contest.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
As of this airing, you're leading that, aren't you?
Yeah, by almost by a little bit, yes.
By a little bit.
Yeah, by a little bit.
So how did this go, Aaron? Were you okay with it?
Yeah.
Was it as good for you as it was for us?
Yeah, it was pretty painless, especially after you turn the cameras off.
Yeah, that's right. You got to have the cameras on. You cannot have the cameras on while you're doing this. I don't want to look at you guys when we're doing this. All right, that's it. Thanks, Aaron. We're not going to end the show here because this is just going to be a segment of some other show. And it may be on next week and it may be on next year.
It all depends on when my check comes in.
Yeah. When all you need to do is send us a check for $232. Everybody say goodbye to Aaron.
Goodbye, Aaron.
Goodbye, Aaron. Goodbye, Aaron.
Goodbye, Aaron.
Don't let the raccoon back in.
Okay, that's it. That was a good show. I like that show. That was a good one. Shane the Young Gun Mason telling us about what he's doing, and he has pins in his... He actually puts the trees in individual spots. I love this guy. I love the hobby is flourishing so much that nobody has any idea. Now I'm going to get on my soapbox again, and we all enjoy that. With the new wave of the digital world, all these young modelers can connect and feel much more part of the community. I'm telling you, this hobby is going to flourish. I'm telling you, you know what? Here's something you may not have even know. This is right down from headquarters. The hobby is going to explode, and we're all going to be covered with model railroad goo. That's what's going to happen. Mark my words. Be ready. Now, the goo won't hurt you, and I believe it's green or a greenish yellow. It's not poisonous. It's not dangerous. It's not going to land on you and give you a headache. It's just going to be kind of messy. It's just goo. That's all it is. Okay, so let's get all our business done. Our email address, modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L, not two L's like, hang on a minute, somebody sent me an email. Hang on. I'm going to do this while we're talking. Somebody sent an email to the podcast and had a suggestion. Don't hang on here. Don't get too far ahead of me. I'm looking. I'm going to go back and look. This is very exciting. No, it's not. Somebody said two L's like General Electric. Not one L like Electromotive, and not two L's like General Electric, which actually was pretty good. I think that's what it was. Man, what a waste of time that was. Everybody, I've just wasted a minute of your life. Bob Frischella, I'm sorry. I hope you weren't distracted while you were painting or whatever it is you're doing. I just wasted an entire minute of your life. Tom Jacobs, I apologize. Jeff Brigham, I apologize. Raymond Stewart, over in the Middle East, serving the country. Thank you very much, Raymond. We love that. Anybody else that's in the service that's a faithful listener of Modeler's Life, let us know so we can give you a shout out. And another shout out to our buddy Little Mike Wachowski. His wife Christina has had some major surgery, and it's really, really hard on them. They're in the hospital in Milwaukee, and Mike lives in Green Bay, so he's hauling his butt down there because he loves his wife and wants to be with her, and it's been very, very difficult. So big shout out, Mike Wachowski, Little Mike Wachowski, and his wife Christina. Okay, that's one L like, I found it. That's one L like as in Electromotive Division. That's a lot of talking for one L. Oh man, hang on a minute. I'm going to take a look again. I can't say it. Why can't I say anything? What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Electromotive Division, not two L's as in General Electric. I'm not sure I'll be using that one again. It seems kind of wordy to me. And remember, okay, and we also have a website, modelerslife.com. If you're new to the podcast, go there and you can see stuff about our crew. You can find stuff about recent show listings and all kinds of other things. Finally, if you're on your way home, Joe Cummings, if you're on your way home, why not stop in and grab yourself some sushi from Because I Love Sushi. You know, there's 7 convenient locations in the greater Busted Knuckle area. That's it. I think we've covered it all. So remember, the Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10 Harley footwear salesmen.
Mr. Strang's wardrobe provided by The Dashing Camper. For all your fashion and tent repair needs, trust The Dashing Camper.
It's another Lincoln Homer.